We all know that Dr. King had a dream, but I know that there are quite a few fellas out there watching right now who have a dream of being just as influential, just as impactful, and just as inspirational as Dr. King was. And you know that I believe that that starts with your image. So today I'm going to be giving you some tips and some tricks to help you dress like Dr. King. What's up, all you good fella fly guys? You know who it is, the Cat in the Hat, your resident fly guy, your chief architect, Michelangelo StyleArchitects.com, here to help you redesign your frame of mind when it comes to the styling thing. And happy MLK Day. Yo, just take a moment today to catch, even if it's a snippet of Dr. King's speech. Right? It doesn't have to be the I Have a Dream speech. It's actually not my favorite speech. I'll actually talk about that at the end of the video. But take an opportunity to just listen to Dr. King, not just for the words that he says, but the way that he conveyed it. And if you have the opportunity to look, and I'm going to add one of his speeches right here, also take the time to see how he showed up. There's a very unique point of view when it comes to Dr. Martin Luther King's style that I think a lot of people actually overlook, simply because it was so expertly and strategically placed that people overlooked it. Now, if you're trying to get Dr. King's look, then you're probably a man of the people. You may be working in education, you may be working in certain levels of the government, in a social capacity, whether you're a social worker, you may be a teacher, or you may be a person who is in the church and in the clergy. If these are the cases, then you are a servant. And one of the greatest acts that any person can do is to provide an act of service. So I just want to say that I appreciate you for doing the things that you're doing. And I want to make sure that you are showing up in a very powerful way for the people that you are servicing. As Dr. King said, any man can be great, or any person can be great, as long as they are willing to serve. So thank you very much for that. And because you are helping serve us, I want to make sure that I provide some value and some service to you. So when it comes to the image of Dr. King, have you ever noticed that everything looked very conservative, very uniform? That's because Dr. King was very strategic in making sure that he was always able to connect with the people around him. In the 50s and the 60s, it was still a very conservative time when it came to how we dressed. So most men were still in suits and ties when they were stepping out, whether they were handling business or doing some leisure things. And Dr. King knew how to maneuver in both spaces, whether it was providing a speech when he was meeting with the president, or when he was in those backyard billiards and shooting pool with some of the locals. One of the things that I've always appreciated about Dr. King was not just his amazing speech abilities or his focus on civil rights, but also his ability to be this imperfect man with such a grand vision. If you study Dr. King, then you know that he smoked a little bit, that he cursed a little bit, and he had his own indiscretions as a man. And that keeps on inspiring me, because it helps me remember that just because I may be imperfect as an individual, it doesn't have to stop the greatness of my vision. And so I hope that that inspires you guys as well. When it comes to the personal style, the one thing that you always have to remember is that because you are a servant, because you are providing service to people, you don't want to detract from your message or from your point of view or from your teaching by being over the top. So for you, this is actually a very easy thing that you can focus on. First thing that you're going to focus on is the color. Like Dr. King, you should usually stick with a blue, a gray, or a brown. Now, don't let this make you feel like you can't be diverse when it comes to those different types of looks. You can go with a navy, you can go with a cobalt, you can go with a blue that has a slight iridescence or has a subtle pattern in it. So you still have quite a few different things that you can play with when it comes to your blues. When it comes to grays, it may be more of a putty, it may be more of a taupe, it could be a slate gray, it could be a charcoal gray. And when it comes to your browns, you could could go with tan, you could go with chocolate. So you see, you have all these different ways that you can play on it, but you want to make sure that it is remaining conservative and not too over the top, so that you don't alienate the people that you're trying to have a conversation with. The second thing that you're going to pay attention to is your environment. One of the things that I loved about Dr. King was he wasn't always in a suit, but even when he was hanging out and chilling, with fellas, there was still a certain elevation that he was providing. And again, it wasn't anything that was leading off from anybody else or what they were doing. He still may have on a short sleeve shirt, but it still was presented in a way that was still approachable, but still pristine and put together. And so the same thing should be in your arsenal when you're constructing your wardrobe. If you're stepping out and you're a teacher, you don't want to ostracize your students by being in a suit and tie all the time, especially if they're young kids, because that doesn't make you approachable. If they are teenagers, then you want to pay attention to those things, but you want to make sure that you're always the approachable guy. So for you, it may just be a great polo and a great pair of jeans that are, dark denim and some great shoes. And that way you can still seem like you're the approachable guy for your students. And on those days you need to show up in style and be sharp, you'll be that much more impactful. Lastly, when it comes to the elements of communication in his style, I love that Dr. King always seemed to walk with his head up, shoulders back, as a man with pride in his presentation, and as a man who was focused on presenting the very best of who we were as black people, as melanated people, to the rest of the world. That even when he was being attacked by dogs or arrested or being shot with water hoses, that there was always this dignified type of element for his dress. And the same thing should be true with you. Stepping out as a servant to the people, always make sure that there is a level of dignity when you are stepping out. Make sure that your clothing is ironed. Make sure that your face is properly shaved or clean shaven, generally for most of those people, even though Dr. King did have his mustache. Make sure that you're just always going to present a favorable experience for people who are engaging with you. You never know, those people could potentially be your constituents or the people who are speaking about you, much like myself. So that's it. I want you to try this on, see how it fits you. And as promised, my favorite speech for Dr. King was actually his "I May Not Get to the Mountaintop with You," because it actually spoke to his elevation, his evolution, as he had begun to learn different types of things and as he was growing older. So again, if you found this information beneficial, then by all means, go ahead and give this a thumbs up. It helps the channel to grow. Please make sure that you share this with a friend who may be in a service type of industry, as this could be extremely beneficial for them in helping them save time and money while making sure that they're more impactful in the communities that they're serving. And lastly, as Dr. King believed, don't ever forget that dress is nothing more than the reflection of a man's state of mind, and how we see ourselves can create a wonderful dream and vision for how we're going to move forward in the world around us. So you should always dress to express.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.